today's guest is Bruce Delgado, who is well known in our community for at least a couple of reasons I can think of. He's the mayor of the city of Marina. He's also a BLM naturalist and is known by many people as an expert in wildflowers and flora and fauna of Fort Ord, and has led a lot of different wildflower hikes. And also for those of us who've had the opportunity to see the goats at Fort Ord, he's served as the interpreter between those of us asking questions and learning about the goats as to the goat herder, who I believe is from Peru, as I recall. So with that, where are you raised and how did you come to this area? What brought you to Monterey County?
I grew up in the city of Glendora, Southern California, until I was 17. And then I went to Humboldt State University and took 7 years of classes and came to Hollister after the university for my first job. And that was in 1990. And then in 1993, my job moved to Fort Ord. And so I moved to Marina and bought a house in Marina in 1996. So I've lived in Marina since then, and I've worked on Fort Ord since 1993.
Wow, great. How did you get interested in the outdoors?
Well, in the city of Glendora, I was lucky to live a couple of blocks from the San Gabriel Mountains. And so I spent a lot of time when I was young catching lizards and snakes and climbing trees and hiking in the mountains. So I got used to the outdoors and I liked it a lot. And I read a lot of books when I was a kid about animals in Africa, and I wanted to save the animals in Africa. And so when I got older and I went to high school and time to graduate, I saw that Humboldt State was the only CSU that had a degree in wildlife management. And so that's how I got my interest in nature. Yeah.
Wonderful. You know, I know you're out there a lot. What's your favorite type of recreation and what do you like best about it?
Well, I like hiking and bicycling and swimming the most. I like it because it shows me the outdoors. I like it a lot more in places out in nature and open space than I do in the city. But I like it in the city too. So I like the fact that it's good exercise and that I get to see nature at the same time.
Wonderful. And we know you as a BLM employee, as a mayor, but I'm assuming you're also involved with various volunteer activities. And what's your favorite volunteer activity relating to the outdoors, and why do you like that activity?
Well, it's a little strange. I like to remove invasive plants as a volunteer. And I used to do that a lot on my job, but my job changed, and I've always done it since 1990. I've always done it on the side. I used to do it at the job and on the side. Now I just do it on the side. But I love the idea of being in nature and working with nature with my hands, because when I'm working with my hands in nature, I learn so much. You know, I come across different kinds of snails and rabbits and plants, and I go back to the same places every month. And so these places become like friends, and I see them through the seasons and through the years, and they're always different, but of course there's always some things that are very similar from month to month. But the idea of being outside and helping nature kind of covers it all for me. There's a couple of projects that are dear to my heart. One is an oak woodland restoration project in the city of Marina next to our library. We've been doing that since 2013, and it's really coming along well, starting to look like a little baby oak woodland forest. And when I'm there, I feel grounded. I feel like I'm in the right spot, doing the right thing.
All right, that's wonderful.
Yeah, and then at the Marina High School, there's a native landscaping project that I put a lot of effort into with the students there, and working with the students and also working with the native plants in front of the high school, making it look beautiful is a great way to spend time for me.
Right. That's lovely. Are there any other interests or avocations that you have that you would want to tell us about that maybe we don't know?
Yes, well, outside of the time um, doing work for the city as mayor and my job and my volunteer commitments, there's not a lot of time left, but uh, I do things around the house. Like I like to dance and listen to music in my house, and I like to take my dogs for a walk and take my dogs to the beach. But mostly local stuff like that. And I like to help people if they're in need of getting food or other basic necessities.
Do you want to talk a little bit more about your work that you do with the BLM?
Yeah, I'll give it a shot. It's a little different. As I mentioned, I work as a biologist for the federal government on Fort Ord, and there's a lot of hiking and planting plants and working with children and working with students at universities around the state, helping them with their different projects, research projects. And I spent a lot of time with the goats on Fort Ord. We have about 2,000 goats, and they're there from November to April. And it's a lot of work. It's like having 2,000 lawnmowers and trying to decide, where they go from week to week and trying to have them eat what we want them to eat and not eat what we don't want them to eat. But it's like having 2,000 children out there and trying to get them to do the things we want. But working with university students and K through 12 students, it's a blast. And there's always more to do than there is time. But there's so many different kinds of projects that we do that it's a wonderful job.
Great, that's lovely. What part of your Latin heritage connects you to nature and the outdoors?
Well, I think that for thousands of years, my ancestors were outdoors, and most of the Mexicans that come from Mexico and Hispanics and Latinos and Latinas that come from other countries, they spend a lot, not all of them, but those that don't come from the cities spend a lot of their time outside. And a lot of that time is working. And for a lot of years, my ancestors have been working outdoors. So when I grew up, my father spent a lot of time out in the yard, in the front yard, in the backyard. And so he taught me how to do landscaping, basic tasks and things. And now I'm really good at those and watering and planting plants and removing weeds. It was very natural to do that as an adult because I spent a lot of time with my dad in the yard. So on Fort Ord, we see more and more Latinas and Latinos riding bikes and hiking. Every 10 years, there's a lot more people, Hispanic people, than there were before on Fort Ord hiking and biking. And so it's really good to see.
Sort of on that thought of you just described the legacy of your dad and your people of outdoors and being in the outdoors, and that we all sort of live a more urban lifestyle these days. What are your ideas to get more Latinx people, especially youth, interested in the outdoors and a healthy lifestyle? And we ask that especially because with Ranger Tammy's group and other groups, we learned that people may live 15 minutes from the ocean, but they've never seen it. Or half of the people in her first hike, and I was with that hike last year, had never been to Fort Ord before. Half of the families, even though they lived maybe 10, 15 minutes away. So what are your ideas to get more people of your heritage enjoying nature and getting that love and that nurturing of nature that you've described for yourself for them and their families?
Well, I've never seen children outdoors that didn't enjoy it a lot. And on Fort Ord, we have hundreds of kids that come every year, and we try to focus on the schools closest to Fort Ord, and they tend to have a majority Latino children. And so I've seen them over the years on coming out in Fort Ord, and everything we do with them, whether it's planting plants or taking walks, collecting seeds, waiting for the bus and running up and down, racing each other up and down the streets, waiting for the bus to come, or showing them salamanders and legless lizards. They really like it a lot. So I know it's just a matter of time. They just need time outside to form a connection with the outdoors. And most children, they come out, and when they get off the bus, they're not comfortable. They're afraid of sitting on the ground, or they just don't really know how to be outside because they haven't been in wild places very much. But kids are very flexible, and I always enjoy watching the difference. Just after an hour, they become so much more relaxed, and by the time they leave and get back on the bus, they seem to be different people as far as their connection and their comfort level. So I think it's just a matter of giving them more time to be outside, because I think the more time they are outside in a safe environment, especially with their friends and family, it's given that they're going to enjoy it.
Really, is there anything else that you would like to add that you would want the viewer to know?
Yeah, I think on the Bureau of Land Management website, you can find your way through California to the Central Coast Field Office and onto Fort Ord. And there's a map and other things, information about Fort Ord. And then the websites that I use locally is a group called C4SM, or Citizens for Sustainable Marina, and the Native Plant Society, CNPS. And then there's a website called Meetup that a lot of people are using, and that's a great way to find hikes or volunteer events that people can go to. So those are some of the websites that I would recommend.
So thank you so much, Bruce Delgado, and all you do for the community.
Thank you, Henrietta. You did a great job. Thank you, Jen.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank
for your
you. It's a
time.
wonderful interview.